In his homilies at Casa Santa Marta, Pope Francis discussed the topic of forgiveness. He emphasized that while God always forgives, he also expects us to forgive others. The Pope highlighted, "If I do not forgive, in a sense, I close the door to God's forgiveness." As the successor of St. Peter, on whom Catholics believe Jesus built his church, the Pope holds a significant position. However, it seems that Pope Francis is now shaking the foundations of the church with his statements. His startling revelation about the death of Jesus has sparked confusion and anger within the church. Who was right in their actions? Jesus Christ. In fact, through the death of Jesus, God destroyed sin and offered us definitive forgiveness and salvation. So, how does justification happen? Justification happens by grace. But what exactly did Pope Francis say that has divided the Catholic Church so sharply? Many believe that this time the Pope has gone too far, and they are prepared to fight and defend the Church's beliefs, even if it means opposing the papacy. A lot is happening within the Catholic community, and the Pope is at the center of this turmoil. Join us as we delve into Pope Francis' revelation about Jesus' death and explore how it might impact his tenure as the Holy Father. The 266th and current Pope, Pope Francis, once again dropped another shocking revelation during his recent speech during Easter. According to the Pope, he said that the death of Jesus was a failure. This is one of the boldest statements ever made in the Catholic faith. Jesus, the Messiah, whose death many Catholics celebrate all over the world, is a failure. As you can imagine, this drew a lot of backlash and reaction from the Catholic faithful. In light of other controversial statements of Pope Francis in the past, many have even gone ahead to request that the Pope be removed from office. Why is this such a big deal? We have all the answers in this video, but before we reveal them, we need to understand the background and leadership style of the Pope. This will help us understand why he made this shocking statement. Get ready as we unveil the strange lifestyle of Pope Francis. Pope Francis's strange background and leadership style. The Holy Father had humble beginnings in the city of Buenos Aires, where he grew up. Even before becoming a popular priest, he lived a simple life and was always caring for the marginalized and poor. When he became the 266th Pope, he decided to live in a simple Vatican guest house rather than the luxurious apostolic palace like previous popes. He said that he chose to live in a simple house rather than the apostolic palace because he was not used to living in such large spaces. Such is the heart of the simple lifestyle of one of the most powerful men in the world. Apart from choosing to live in a simple house, the Pope does not dress extravagantly, preferring modest clothing to ensure he doesn't display luxury and wealth, which he believes the majority of the world's population doesn't have. His holiness epitomizes humility and compassion. As a result, he is always speaking about showing kindness to everyone, irrespective of their religion, gender, race, or beliefs. He continues to emphasize that the Church should be welcoming to everyone. This is his leadership style and approach to leading the Catholic Church. The Supreme Pontiff does not only say these words, he practices them. So it's not surprising that he has made it his mission to connect and have discussions with individuals from other religions and beliefs. He hopes that through open dialogue, the world can come to understand one another and live in peace. This radical approach is further revealed in the way Pope Francis interprets the Bible. To find out the unique way the Pope interprets the Bible, you have to keep watching. His unconventional method is so un-Catholic. The un-Catholic way Pope Francis interprets the Bible. One more reason why many supporters see Pope Francis as progressive and a blessing to the modern world is the way he interprets the Bible. While to conservatives it might not look Catholic, the Pope has called for people to pay more attention to the deeper meanings and interpretations of the Bible stories rather than complying with the exact written words. The Supreme Pontiff believes that the words in the Bible must be interpreted in terms of their relevance to modern life. He emphasizes that the stories of the Bible reveal a deeper level of meaning to life if one takes their time to study in depth and not just surface reading. One such biblical interpretation that Pope Francis emphasizes involves the creation story as told in Genesis. According to the Bible, it tells us how God created the world from darkness and nothingness before light came and dispelled the darkness, leading to the creation of the world as we now have it. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was formless and empty, and waters and darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. According to Pope Francis, the creation tale goes beyond telling us about the beginning of all things. It is a story that reveals our connection with God and our duty to take care of the earth. This is why the Holy Father has been a major supporter of environmental protection and other endeavors that keep our planet safe. The Pope believes that when we study the Bible this way, we'll be able to make the teachings found in it more meaningful for everyday life. However, this approach doesn't sit well with several people. Conservatives believe that the Bible should be interpreted the way it is written. We'll talk more about these debates surrounding the Pope's teachings in the next chapter, where we'll shed light on the controversies the Pope has had to face as a result of his teachings and practices. Don't miss the next scene, where things get even more interesting. Oppositions to Pope Francis's teachings. As we said, a group of Catholics are not happy with the way the Pope interprets the Bible and his easy way of accepting everyone. They believe that the Church should not be looking for deeper meanings in Bible stories, as this might alter the Church's fundamental beliefs and practices. Even though the Holy Father has tried to maintain the Church's fundamental beliefs while making changes that are suitable for modern times, the opposition believes that Pope Francis is trying to destroy the Church's beliefs. These conservatives insist that the old ways of the Church be maintained and not changed for any reason. Thankfully, this is just a faction and not the entirety of the Roman Catholic Church, as many believe and support the actions the Holy Father is taking. These supporters believe that by understanding the Bible's deeper meanings, we can make the world a better place and make the Bible more relevant to our modern world. The opponents of the Pope's reforms hold to their belief that Pope Francis is indeed destroying the Church, and the several controversial statements he has made over the years are proof of this unholy act by the Holy Father. So let's take a look at some of these controversial statements. Most of them will leave you confounded. Pope Francis's controversial statements. One thing nobody can accuse Pope Francis of is being afraid to say what he thinks. Over the years since his ascension to the Holy See in 2013, the successor of St. Peter has made several controversial statements that have divided the Catholic Church into opposing sides. These statements have made many people question whether his faith is indeed intact. Some have even gone ahead to say they are not sure His Holiness will go to heaven based on his statements. Because of these statements, several Catholic faithful have gone ahead to say that, although they are Catholic, they do not follow the teachings of Pope Francis, but the teachings of Jesus. It is little wonder why his recent statement on the death of Jesus caused a huge outcry. But before then, the Pope's views and statements on the LGBTQ+ community and same-sex couples surprised the whole world. The Supreme Pontiff instructed the Catholic priests could not bless same-sex couples. This is a huge change from the traditional practice, where the Catholic Church is averse to such individuals and their practices. For so long, the Vatican policy held same-sex relationships as a sin, which shouldn't be condoned, tolerated, or blessed. Now, this statement from the Pope has overturned this policy, leading to calls for his removal from the Holy See. Apart from his statement regarding the LGBTQ+ community, the Pope said something a few years ago that many people couldn't wrap their heads around. He said in an interview with one of his friends, Eugenio Scalfari, an atheist, that humans could disappear and that God would create a new species. Scalfari brought up the matter in a different interview with the Pope again and asked him what would happen to bad people who go to hell. Would they suffer forever? Pope Francis replied by saying, God will forgive those who become repentant and feel sorry for their evil acts. He said, such people will be forgiven if they ask for forgiveness from God, even in hell, and then be moved to be with God. On the other hand, those who refuse to feel sorry and repentant won't be forgiven. This set of people would stop existing as their bad souls would disappear instead of suffering forever. The Pope went on to say that he believes hell is not a place of eternal suffering, but where souls get the chance to be forgiven. After the account of this interview was released to the public, the Vatican issued a statement explaining that what was written in the paper by Scalfari was not the exact words of the Pope, that those words were not correct, and that the public shouldn't understand them exactly the way they were written. Despite this statement from the Vatican, the newspaper company still put it in their papers and website. After that, they removed it from the website and put it up again before it was finally taken down. As you might have imagined, there was all sorts of confusion regarding this interview, as all that the Pope said goes against all that the Catholic Church believes about hell. People went ahead to connect what was published to a book the Pope wrote called Amors Laetitia. In this book, Pope Francis says that nobody will be punished forever because the Bible does not say that. This connection made people further believe that His Holiness' belief about hell is different from traditional Catholic belief. This was later proven to be correct, as Pope Francis implied in another interview that nobody will be in hell forever, and that anyone who refuses to be with God will cease to exist after their death. So, despite the Vatican statement, the majority of the public believes that the Pope has a different view of hell from the Church. The Bishop of the Holy See has even made a controversial statement about the biggest issues in the world. In one interview, the Holy Father said that the world's current biggest issues are the lack of jobs for young people and the loneliness of older people. While this might not look like much of a big deal, it is considered such among Catholic circles, as the Church has never upheld any of these issues as being the world's biggest issue. The Pope drew further ire when he said that the objective of trying to convert everyone to Catholicism is silly and doesn't make sense. Many Catholics believe the Pope crossed the line with this statement, as it is in direct opposition to the biblical command, which instructs Christians to tell everyone about Jesus. You would think that that was the height of the controversies the Pope would create until he said that there is nothing like the Catholic God, but just one God. This is such a great contradiction of the Catholic faith's beliefs that Catholicism is the only true religion on earth, and that it is only through Catholicism that man can reach the true God. This statement from the Pope caused a major upset and confusion, with many believing he had a different and more general spiritual view that wasn't confined to Catholicism. Although Pope Francis has stated several times that abortion is wrong, during the Special Mercy Year, His Holiness made a statement that brought further criticism. He said that Catholic priests could forgive women who had abortions. This is in line with his kind and forgiving approach and leadership style, making another dent in his progressive image. The Pope went off script in his weekly address to the faithful gathered on St. Peter's Square to deliver his strongest criticism yet of abortion, which conservatives have complained about since his ascension to the Holy See. However, in this matter, he still continues to criticize abortion as wrong, yet he extends a loving and forgiving hand to anyone who has had an abortion in the past. Another issue Pope Francis has addressed is the death penalty. Unlike the Catholic Church, which believes the death penalty is acceptable in certain situations, the Pope considers it wrong, regardless of the crime committed. Once again, this also drew criticism from within and outside the Church. The Pope has also had his say on capitalism and has declared it unjust and unsuitable for people. He went further to say that too much care for material things such as money, phones, houses, cars, etc., can take people away from loving God. He emphasized that society must pay attention to social justice by being fair to everyone, and that everyone should be given the chance to live equally. You would think that these words would please everyone. On the contrary, many felt that His Holiness was supporting socialist ideas, which was not a good stance. In the next chapter, we'll reveal the actions that opponents of the Pope's teachings, statements, and practices have taken. This next scene will reveal interesting happenings within the Catholic Church. Criticism and support for Pope Francis. As a result of Pope Francis's unorthodox teachings, statements, and practices, several top Catholic scholars decided to do something about the matter before it got out of hand, as they believed the Pope was acting contrary to Catholic beliefs. Along with several priests, these scholars wrote a letter which was published on the website LifeSite News. In the letter, they stated that the Pope's teachings were contrary to the teachings of the Church. They emphasized that his teachings on same-sex marriage and forgiveness were not in line with the fundamentals of Catholic beliefs. The petition letter mentioned that the Pope said that divorced and remarried Catholics can take communion, whereas the Church believes that marriage should last forever. They also revealed that this letter is the third time they have brought up this matter after they wrote to high-ranking Catholic leaders in 2016 and then in 2017, where they mentioned 7 things that the Pope was teaching wrongly. Then, they never said that the Pope was preaching heresy. However, in the third letter, they accused Pope Francis of preaching heresy. Furthermore, they stressed that the Pope was not sorry for his mistakes, and as a result, he should be removed as head of the Catholic Church. The letter was signed by well-known and influential Catholics, including Aidan Nichols, founder of the Dominican Order, Brain McCall, a law professor, and Anna Silvas, a Catholic scholar. The petition letter was posted online, and within 12 hours of its posting, 1,500 people had signed the petition, showing support. These people felt they were defending the beliefs of the Church from the heretic changes made by the Pope, which could lead to widespread confusion in the Catholic Church. Despite this opposition, the Holy Father had supporters who said that it was wrong for these people to attack and question the authority of the Pope. Interestingly, the ideas and approach of Pope Francis are not new. In fact, his approach is just a small part of the Catholic Church revolution that began in the 1960s, just after the Second Vatican Council was held. At that time, the Church took a progressive approach to understanding the Bible rather than using the traditional approach. With this approach, various but more comprehensive ideas about its teachings emerged, which led to arguments then and are still the source of contention in the Catholic Church today. Yet modern-day conservatives believe that these reforms are simply the doings of Pope Francis. Supporters of the reforms believe the new changes can be integrated into the Church to reflect the Church's progressiveness and willingness to tackle modern problems. With these changes, they believe the Church can act as a guide for several people all over the world. In the next chapter, we'll reveal what Pope Francis actually thinks about and says about Jesus. The grand finale is coming. Get ready to be amazed what Pope Francis has to say about Jesus and his message. Depending on which side of the fence you're on, Pope Francis is either a heretic or a spiritual reformer. Regardless, all ears are open to hear what he will say about a matter, and the subject of Jesus is one that people want to know about. While it seemed like the Holy Father labeled Jesus' death as a failure, the truth is that he said that from the standpoint of humanity. In the eyes of humanity, Jesus' death was a failure, but according to God's plan, it was a success. The full speech reveals that the Pope believed Jesus' death showed us the right way to measure success, that it must be from God's perspective and not that of man. Instead of Jesus becoming the Messiah and King as the Jews would have wanted, which would have been categorized as success by human standards, Jesus chose to die on the cross, thereby ending his life as a failure, humanly speaking. So the Pope only has good things to say about Jesus. His words in this matter were simply taken out of context. The life of Jesus, according to the Pope, was one of empathy and compassion. Jesus was always willing to sympathize with the plight of others, especially the ordinary and rejected members of society. He always forgave sinners, even the worst of them, and this forgiveness was proof of his love. Jesus' love for sinners was so great that the religious leaders of his time called him the friend of sinners. This is similar to the label that His Holiness has received over the years in his approach to being more accommodating and accepting of sinners. The Supreme Pontiff called on everyone to live like Jesus by showing love, kindness, and forgiveness. He encouraged people to care for the poor the same way Jesus did. As Jesus himself said that he came to preach the gospel to the poor, we must be willing to show that same level of love. The love and compassion of Jesus were hands-on and practical. He didn't do it from a lofty palace or seated in a temple. He was found among the common people. The Pope talked about how Jesus experienced the oppression of the Romans in his day, but he still chose to help the helpless. The lifestyle of Pope Francis reflects his teachings about emulating Jesus. When the Pope visited a correctional center after he recovered from a brief illness, His Holiness presided over Mass in the center and also washed the feet of 12 young inmates. These inmates were not Catholics. They were from different religious backgrounds and races, and even 2 of them were women. While performing the ritual of foot washing, the Pope delivered a sermon, which he expanded on when he gave a sermon during the Mass of the Lord's Supper on Holy Thursday. In his sermon, he revealed how Jesus showed forgiveness to Jesus by washing his feet, even though he knew he would betray him. The Pope emphasized that there is no sin greater than forgiveness. He said that the ritual of foot washing is not just a tradition, but a sign that we ought to care for one another. Speaking further, he said that the injustice all over the world is so painful to see as people continue to take advantage of one another. He also talked about people from broken homes who are engaged in one negative condition or another. The Bishop of Rome spoke to his listeners, saying that they shouldn't see themselves better than such people living miserably, and that what we enjoy is just a function of God's grace. While speaking, the Pope looked at the inmates and said that every one of us can slip, and this awareness offers us what he called the dignity of being sinners. He said that Jesus wants us that way, which is why he washed the feet of his disciples, including Judas, who was about to betray him. The Pope went ahead to state that if everyone followed the lessons of Jesus, our lives would be better, as everyone would be eager to help one another instead of taking advantage of others. He stated that those who lend a helping hand have noble hearts, and that is the heart Jesus wants us to have. In a personal moment, His Holiness mentioned that it's possible that he might shy away from helping if he knew the flaws of certain people. However, Jesus doesn't do that. He emphasized how Jesus already knows our flaws, but still loves us, and is never frightened by our flaws. After paying for our sins and flaws, what Jesus wants is to lead us by the hand so that we will not live a hard life. The Pope was basically saying that Jesus loves everyone regardless of their religious state, affiliations, or imperfect state. This sermon is one that we can all agree with, even if we don't agree with the Pope's controversial statements. So, let's follow the teachings of Jesus and the call of His Holiness to make the world a better place by helping one another. Did you love this video? If you did, give it a like, and then click on the subscribe button for more awesome videos like this.